Jealousy doesn't begin with betrayal. It begins with fear, fear of being replaced, fear of not being enough, fear that love can disappear without warning. In many LGBTQ+ relationships, jealousy doesn't show up as obvious control. It shows up as constant questions, silent tension, the need to know everything, the belief that love means monitoring, and when love slowly turns into possession, desire doesn't explode. It fades. Before we continue, comment below. Have you ever tried to control someone because you were afraid of losing them? And subscribe to the channel. You're part of this conversation now. When jealousy is not about your partner, but about you. Jealousy rarely speaks about real infidelity. Most of the time, it speaks about emotional insecurity. In LGBTQ+ couples, jealousy often carries extra weight because many people grew up learning that love was not safe, not protected, not validated, not openly celebrated. When someone grows up hiding who they love, the nervous system learns one dangerous lesson. Love can be taken away at any moment. This belief doesn't disappear in adulthood, it hides inside relationships. Jealousy doesn't appear when your partner talks to someone else. It appears when your mind translates that interaction as a threat to your emotional survival. The spoken question is, who were you with? The unspoken question is, am I still enough for you? Many LGBTQ+ couples fight repeatedly believing the problem is external behavior, social media, friends, exes, attention, looks. But the real conflict is internal. Jealousy is a desperate request for emotional safety, but instead of asking for reassurance, it demands control, and control never creates intimacy. It destroys it. At first, control feels like care. Then it becomes tension. Later, it turns into emotional surveillance. Before long, love is no longer about connection. It's about preventing abandonment. In LGBTQ+ relationships, this cycle intensifies when there is a history of family rejection, bullying, secrecy, or relationships built in hiding. The body learns to love in survival mode, and loving in survival mode is exhausting. So couples start saying things like, "I still love you, but I don't feel desire anymore. I love you, but everything turns into an argument. I love you, but I feel trapped." Love didn't disappear. Safety did. Without emotional safety, jealousy becomes the only way the bond knows how to stay alive, even if it becomes toxic. Jealousy promises closeness, but creates distance. It promises loyalty, but produces resentment. It promises protection, but suffocates desire. The more one partner controls, the more the other emotionally withdraws. Not because they stopped loving, but because no one can breathe inside an emotional cage. This is the cycle. Fear leads to control. Control leads to conflict. Conflict leads to distance. Distance increases fear. And the more the cycle repeats, the more normal it feels. Until one day, the couple realizes they only know how to relate through tension. That isn't love. That's emotional survival. Have you noticed that jealousy becomes stronger when you feel insecure about yourself? Not when your partner actually does something wrong? Leave a comment. Your story might help someone else feel less alone. Desire, abandonment, fear, and the confusion between love and possession. Desire needs space to exist, but fear hates space. In many LGBTQ+ relationships, this tension becomes invisible but constant. One partner needs reassurance, closeness, confirmation. The other needs breathing room, autonomy, freedom to desire. Neither is wrong. But when fear is in charge, desire doesn't stand a chance. Jealousy often disguises itself as passion. It sounds intense. It feels urgent. It looks like devotion. But real desire is not urgency. Real desire is choice. When abandonment fear enters the relationship, love starts to feel like something that must be secured at all costs. And that's when possession quietly replaces connection. Possession says, if you belong to me, I am safe. Desire says, I choose you, even when I'm free. These two languages cannot coexist for long. Many LGBTQ plus couples confuse jealousy with proof of love because intensity has often been the only form of emotional validation they were taught. If someone cares deeply, they worry. If they worry, they monitor. If they monitor, they must love. But intensity is not intimacy. Intensity burns fast. Intimacy builds slowly. In queer relationships, especially those shaped by early secrecy or rejection, love often develops under pressure. Pressure to prove, pressure to protect, pressure to not lose what finally feels rare. So when desire naturally fluctuates, as it does in every long-term relationship, fear steps in to fill the silence. And fear asks dangerous questions. Why don't you want me like before? Who else are you thinking about? Am I becoming invisible to you? These questions are rarely about sex. They are about worth. When desire fades, jealousy often rushes in to replace it, because jealousy keeps the connection alive, even if through conflict. Arguments feel better than distance. Suspicion feels better than emotional absence, and slowly the relationship becomes fueled by tension instead of attraction. One partner becomes hyper-aware, the other becomes emotionally guarded. Desire, which needs safety and freedom, collapses under constant evaluation. This is why jealousy often increases when intimacy decreases, not because love is gone, but because fear is louder than desire. And here's the painful paradox. The more one partner tries to hold on, the more the other needs to pull away to feel like themselves again, not to betray, not to punish, but to breathe. In LGBTQ plus couples, this dynamic is intensified by identity wounds. Many people didn't grow up feeling chosen. They grew up feeling tolerated, hidden, or conditional. So when desire shifts, it activates old fears. I'm too much. I'm not enough. I will be replaced. And jealousy becomes a defense mechanism, not against infidelity, but against emotional erasure. The tragedy is that possession kills the very thing it tries to protect. You cannot demand desire. You cannot monitor attraction. You cannot control longing. Desire only exists where there is freedom to choose again and again. When love becomes surveillance, desire goes underground. And when desire disappears, jealousy escalates. That's how the cycle deepens. Fear confuses intensity with intimacy. Possession pretends to be protection. And love slowly forgets how to feel safe. Have you ever noticed that jealousy becomes stronger when desire starts to fade, even if nothing wrong actually happened? Comment below. Your reflection might unlock something important for someone else. When control replaces communication, control rarely arrives loudly. It doesn't start with rules. It starts with concern. Just tell me when you get there. Why didn't you answer? I just want to understand. At first, it feels reasonable, even loving. But slowly, communication stops being a bridge and becomes an inspection. In many LGBTQ plus relationships, this shift happens so gradually that neither partner notices the exact moment when curiosity turns into monitoring. Questions stop being about connection and start being about certainty. Control grows when communication feels unsafe. When one partner no longer feels heard, they try to feel informed. When reassurance doesn't calm fear, surveillance replaces dialogue. And that's where emotional safety begins to collapse. Healthy communication is based on vulnerability. Control is based on anxiety. When someone says, "I need to know everything," what they often mean is, "I don't trust that I'll survive uncertainty." In queer relationships, uncertainty has historically meant danger, rejection, loss, isolation. So the nervous system learns to eliminate ambiguity at all costs. But intimacy cannot exist without uncertainty. Real communication allows space for misunderstanding, repair, and difference. Control demands constant clarity and punishes ambiguity. This is when arguments stop being about the present moment and start carrying the weight of past wounds. A simple delay in response becomes evidence. A change in tone becomes a threat. A private moment becomes suspicion. And slowly, one partner begins to feel interrogated instead of met. The relationship becomes emotionally asymmetrical. One partner scans for danger, the other scans for exits. Control feels active, silence feels passive. So the anxious partner escalates. More questions, more checking, more explanations demanded. The other partner withdraws, not because they are guilty, but because they no longer feel trusted. And this is the moment many LGBTQ+ couples misinterpret what's happening. They think, we fight because we care too much. But that's not true. They fight because they don't feel safe being vulnerable anymore. Communication dies when honesty becomes risky. When sharing feelings leads to conflict instead of understanding. At that point, partners stop saying what they feel and start managing how they appear. This is where emotional distance grows silently. One partner feels unseen, the other feels uncontained, and neither feels chosen. Control creates the illusion of closeness, but it destroys emotional truth. You cannot communicate freely when your words might be used against you later. So partners begin to edit themselves. They minimize. They hide small details to avoid big fights. And ironically, this secrecy is then used as proof that control was necessary all along. This is how the jealousy cycle feeds itself. Fear creates control. Control kills communication. The absence of communication creates distance. Distance intensifies fear, and the cycle tightens. In LGBTQ+ couples, this pattern is often intensified by power imbalances, age gaps, financial dependence, immigration status, coming out stages, or social acceptance. Control can hide behind protection, behind, "I'm just worried about you," behind, "The world isn't safe for us," and sometimes that's true. But protection that removes autonomy is no longer protection, it's possession. When communication is healthy, partners can say, "I feel insecure today. I need reassurance. I'm afraid." When control takes over, vulnerability disappears. Only accusation remains, and accusation never invites closeness. This is the point where many relationships reach a crossroads, even if they don't realize it yet. Either the couple learns to rebuild emotional safety, or the relationship becomes a battlefield of defensiveness and withdrawal. And most couples don't break up here. They stay, they normalize the tension, they call it passion, they call it strong personalities, but underneath, intimacy is eroding. Because intimacy requires trust, and trust cannot survive under constant evaluation. Have you ever noticed yourself asking questions not to connect, but to calm your anxiety? Be honest in the comments. That awareness alone can change everything. When past wounds enter the relationship, most couples believe they are fighting each other. They're not. They're fighting ghosts. Jealousy is rarely born in the present moment. It is activated there, but it is shaped by the past. In LGBTQ+ relationships, past wounds often arrive quietly, disguised as personality traits. "I'm just sensitive. I've always been anxious. I don't trust easily." But these are not traits. They are survival strategies. Many LGBTQ+ individuals grew up learning that love came with conditions. Be quieter. Be less visible, be easier to accept. Some learned that love could turn into rejection overnight. Others learned that being authentic meant being abandoned. So the nervous system adapted. It learned to anticipate loss, to scan for danger, to prepare for disappearance. And when adult love finally arrives, real, intimate, meaningful, those old defenses don't disappear. They wait. Jealousy is one of the most common ways those defenses reappear, not because the partner is doing something wrong, but because closeness activates the fear of losing it. The deeper the bond, the louder the fear. This is why jealousy often escalates precisely when a relationship becomes serious, when commitment deepens, when emotional dependence grows, when the possibility of loss feels unbearable. Past rejection teaches the mind a cruel equation. If I attach too much, I will suffer, so the body tries to stay in control. It confuses control with safety, and the relationship becomes the stage where unresolved pain reenacts itself. A partner doesn't just leave the room. The nervous system relives every previous abandonment. A delayed message isn't just a delay, it's a reminder of being ignored, dismissed, or erased. The present moment collapses under the weight of memory, and the partner becomes a symbol, not a person. This is one of the most painful dynamics in LGBTQ+ couples, fighting a current partner for crimes committed by the past, not intentionally, not consciously, but emotionally. Jealousy becomes a time machine. It pulls old pain into the present and demands resolution now. But no partner can heal wounds they didn't create, and no amount of reassurance can satisfy a fear that belongs to another chapter of life. So couples get stuck in exhausting loops. One partner asks for proof of love. The other feels unfairly accused. Both feel misunderstood. Trauma distorts perception. It narrows attention. It exaggerates threat. It turns ambiguity into danger. This is why logic rarely resolves jealousy. Because jealousy doesn't live in logic. It lives in the body. In LGBTQ+ relationships, identity wounds intensify this process. Shame around desire, fear of being too much, fear of being not enough. Jealousy often masks a deeper question: am I allowed to exist fully in love? When that question was once answered with rejection, the body never forgets. So it watches, it tests, it demands reassurance, not to hurt, but to survive. The tragedy is that trauma responses often push away the very closeness they crave. One partner becomes hypervigilant, the other becomes emotionally exhausted. Both feel alone together. This is where many LGBTQ+ couples believe their relationship is failing. But what's actually failing is the belief that love alone heals trauma. Love reveals trauma. It doesn't erase it. And when couples don't recognize this, jealousy becomes personal instead of contextual. They ask, "Why are you like this with me?" instead of, "What happened to you before me?" That question changes everything, because healing doesn't begin with control. It begins with understanding. But understanding requires safety. And safety cannot be built in a relationship ruled by fear. Have you ever realized that your jealousy was triggered by an old wound, not by what your partner was actually doing? Share in the comments. Naming it is the first step toward changing it. Breaking the jealousy cycle without losing desire. Most couples try to end jealousy by eliminating triggers. They set rules. They limit behaviors. They negotiate access. But the jealousy cycle is not broken by control. It is interrupted by safety. Jealousy doesn't calm down when the world becomes smaller. It calms down when the nervous system feels less alone. This is where many LGBTQ+ couples struggle, because safety has often been external, not internal. Safety came from hiding, from blending in, from not standing out. So when a relationship asks for emotional exposure, the body panics. Breaking the jealousy cycle begins with a radical shift, moving from monitoring behavior to naming emotion. Instead of, "Why did you like their photo?" The real sentence is, I felt invisible for a moment and didn't know how to say it. Instead of, who were you texting? The truth is, I'm scared I don't matter as much as I used to. This doesn't mean jealousy disappears instantly, but it changes shape. Jealousy loses power when it is spoken as fear instead of accusation. The moment vulnerability replaces surveillance, something important happens. The partner stops being an enemy and becomes a witness. But this only works if both partners feel emotionally safe enough to tell the truth. Safety is built through predictability, not control, through emotional consistency, not constant access. It sounds simple, but it's not. It requires tolerating discomfort, letting uncertainty exist without immediately neutralizing it, allowing the other person to be separate and still chosen. Desire lives in that space. When couples try to eliminate jealousy by tightening boundaries, desire suffocates. When they create safety through emotional honesty, desire has room to return. One of the most powerful shifts a couple can make is learning to pause the cycle, not fix it, not solve it, pause it. To say, this feels familiar, this reaction feels bigger than the moment, I don't want to hurt you, but I'm scared. Pausing breaks the automatic response. And automatic responses are what keep jealousy alive. Another key element is responsibility. Jealousy becomes destructive when one partner believes the other is responsible for regulating their fear. That's an impossible job. A partner can offer reassurance, but they cannot become the manager of another person's anxiety. Healthy LGBTQ+ relationships learn to differentiate what belongs to the relationship and what belongs to personal history. Without that distinction, jealousy turns into entitlement. I feel afraid, so you must change. But safety grows when the sentence becomes, I feel afraid, and I'm learning how to sit with it. This doesn't mean tolerating harm or disrespect. It means understanding the difference between danger and discomfort. Many couples mistake discomfort for danger, but discomfort is often where growth happens. When jealousy is met with curiosity instead of panic, the cycle weakens. Fear stops running the relationship. Desire stops hiding, and intimacy, real intimacy, slowly re-enters the room. Not the explosive intensity of the beginning, but something deeper, quieter, more stable. A love that doesn't need constant proof, a love that allows difference without collapse. That's when couples realize jealousy was never the enemy. Fear was. Have you ever noticed that jealousy softens when you speak honestly about fear, instead of acting on it? Write your thoughts in the comments. This is where change actually begins. Love without possession. The ending. Most couples never reach. Most relationships don't end because of jealousy. They end because of exhaustion. Exhaustion from explaining, from defending, from proving love over and over again. By the time couples realize jealousy has taken control, the damage is often subtle but deep. Desire feels fragile. Trust feels conditional. Love feels heavy. And many LGBTQ+ couples arrive at the same silent question: is this just how love is supposed to feel? The answer is no. But to reach a different ending, something uncomfortable must happen. The couple must stop confusing intensity with intimacy. Jealousy thrives where identity and love are fused, where losing the relationship feels like losing the self. That fusion is especially common in LGBTQ+ relationships because love was often the first place where identity felt fully seen. So when love feels threatened, identity panics. This is where the cycle either breaks or hardens forever. Breaking it requires redefining what commitment actually means. Commitment is not access. It is not visibility. It is not knowing everything. Commitment is the ability to remain connected without possession. It is choosing someone who is free, not managing someone who is afraid. This is the hardest lesson for couples stuck in jealousy. Love cannot be secured by force, only by trust. And trust is not built through promises. It is built through emotional presence over time. Jealousy loses power when partners learn to tolerate one essential truth. Your partner's desire is not something you own. You are chosen, or you are not. And being chosen freely is the only thing that sustains desire. Many couples are afraid of this truth because it feels risky, because freedom means uncertainty. But certainty never created passion. It only created compliance. Love without possession feels quieter, less dramatic, less explosive. And that scares people who learned that love must hurt to be real. In healthy relationships, jealousy still appears, but it no longer runs the system. It becomes a signal, not a weapon, a signal to slow down, to reconnect, to listen beneath the reaction. Couples who escape the jealousy cycle don't eliminate fear. They learn to hold it without letting it dictate behavior. They stop asking, "How do I stop feeling jealous?" and start asking, "What is this fear asking for right now?" Sometimes the answer is reassurance. Sometimes it's boundaries. Sometimes it's personal healing, not relational negotiation. This is where many relationships transform, because the partner is no longer responsible for regulating another person's wounds. Love becomes a place of meeting, not fixing. And here is the truth most couples never hear. You don't lose love when you release control. You discover whether love was real to begin with. That realization is terrifying and freeing. Some couples grow stronger here. Others realize they were bonded by fear, not choice. Both outcomes are honest, and honesty is the foundation of any love that lasts. Before we end, it's important to be clear. These insights are inspired by relationship psychology teachings and reflections widely shared by Esther Perel, adapted here to explore the unique emotional dynamics of LGBTQ+ relationships. This is not therapy. It is education, reflection, and emotional awareness, and sometimes awareness is the beginning of everything. If you're being honest with yourself, are you staying in your relationship because of love, or because letting go of control feels too scary? Comment below. And if this video made you see your relationship differently, subscribe now, because the next video will go deeper into the one mistake most LGBTQ+ couples make when trying to fix jealousy, and why it quietly destroys desire instead of saving the relationship. You won't want to miss it.